Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. A happy World Water Day to you. My name is Kelly Bridges, and I am a Senior Associate at Global Water 2020, as well as a board member of Global Water Alliance, and also the Young Professional Board Member of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. I am delighted to be moderating today's interactive, action-oriented webinar, which we're also recording to share afterwards. So today we're bringing together youth, students, recent graduates, young professionals across North America to catalyze a regional youth movement in the lead up to the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar, Senegal. We are also joined by more seasoned professionals whom I hope will support the young water leaders in their lives to engage in and contribute to the forum. The World Water Forum, as many of you know, happens every 3 years and is the world's largest meeting of water sector stakeholders. Today, we are delighted to have as a representative Mamadou Guizé from the World Water Forum's Executive Secretariat join us, who will share a bit more about the forum and also the Secretariat's youth mobilization plan. We are also delighted to be joined by Oscar-winning producer Claire Slinney and Dr. Arun Deb, who will provide opening remarks before a panel discussion with Linda Bowie, Dr. Jordan Ermilio, Krista Cook, and Nalat Fanet Black. We'll then have some time for discussion with all the speakers before breaking out for 25 minutes into small rooms to brainstorm how you might engage in the forum next year. So without further ado, I'd like to formally welcome and introduce Mamadou. Mamadou Guizé serves as the coordinator for the 9th World Water Forum's Initiative Dakar 2022, which is aimed at selecting innovative and impactful water and sanitation projects for support by the forum. He's a water engineer with a specialization in water resources mobilization. Mamadou, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Kelly, for this great presentation. I wish good World Water Day to everyone in this forum and around the globe. Can you share the presentation, please, at this point? The World Water Forum is happening in Senegal. Next slide, please. From March 21st to March 26th in 2022. It originally was planned to start today, March 22nd, 2021, but because of what we know as the pandemic, which is a tragedy, everybody going through, we had to move it back 1 year to allow a bigger gathering, because the water is so important. Discussing it from a distance might be not very efficient. So we prefer to have a presential or face-to-face meeting. So we push it back 1 year to have a chance to really have it in person. So first, I'm going to review quickly the structuration of the forum. Then I will talk quickly about the initiative Dakar 2021 before detailing some strategies that we are working on to create some kind of youth mobilization around the forum. The Dakar Forum is the 9th of the kind that started first, as you see on this map, in 1997 in Marrakech, in Morocco, with just 500 participants. And today we're talking about tens of thousands every 3 years gathering to talk about this crucial issue of water. Next slide. So the Dakar 22 Forum under the theme Water Security and Peace is the 9th of the kind, and it's a big milestone to efficient response to the water challenge. So the issue of water is important for peace and development, especially in Africa, but everywhere else in the world. So the vision of the forum is around a more socially, politically efficient and economically efficient forum, a forum linked to the SDGs, to the biggest agreement around the globe, the Paris Accord, the Sendai Agreement, and the Agenda 2063 for Africa, and other big agendas. And we want it to be a forum that catalyzes action on engagements on water and sanitation, not just a forum of resolutions and conclusions. So a global and local forum that's anchored to the great water challenges in Africa and in the world. Next slide. So the forum is centered about the citizen. So we want it to be a forum of the responses. In that matter, we need to organize the whole process around making sure the citizen is at the center of everything. So we mobilize the civil society, the mayors, the parliamentaries, the researchers, so every way of life, to bring them together in order to imagine and find solutions and practical, really, responses to the water issues around the globe. So we had priorities, which are for the water security and sanitation, the water for rural development, which is the first time it's introduced to a World Water Forum. We have the cooperation around water, shared water bodies and basins, and tools and means that talks about knowledge, financing, and other governance of water. Now, the components of the forum are mainly three of them. We have a multi-stakeholder platform where the international water actors are gathered online, basically in a platform to share ideas and to build together the thematic content, the scientific content of the forum. So usually, for a little story, usually they have like a separated tracks going to the forums. They had the governments speaking together, the mayors talking, the ministers of water. Then at the forum, everybody brings their resolutions and they read them, so they share them. So try to go based on those resolutions for the next 3 years before the next forum. But for this one, it's particular. We break down those walls, bring in everybody in the same room, basically talking about the issues and having the same conclusions at the end, and are engaging each one of us as actors. So there will be a head of state summit, which is the first time also it happens in a World Water Forum. So the Senegal President Macky Sall invited all his colleagues to really take at heart and take at the highest level the engagement to make the water issue a priority in everybody's plans. So the initiative Dakar 2021 is also in a big innovation. You can go to the next slide on this one, because I'll be talking about it for the next 3 slides. Go ahead. So it's an innovation of this forum that's supposed to label projects that bring concrete responses with strong socioeconomic impact at countries and continental level. It's aimed to accelerating the achievement of the SDGs, including the SDG 6. Next. So we just noticed that 11 out of the 17 SDGs of the United Nations are related to either water or sanitation or hygiene, meaning if we miss the SDG 6, which is ensuring clean water and affordable and acceptable sanitation to everyone by 2030, if we miss that goal, 11 at least of the 17 goals cannot be actually achieved, like food for all. If you cannot produce enough, because water is needed to produce either fishing, either agricultural production. So the SDG, the water is at the center of all SDGs. So delays noted on achieving the SDGs make it more important also to focus really to bring the issue of water at the center of all political agendas, to make sure we catch up with our goal to getting everybody water and sanitation by 2030. Next slide. So the process of the initiative is around an international selection jury for the labelization, a transparent selection methodology, an international initiative committee of 8 members designated by Senegal and by the World Water Council, which is the core organizer of the World Water Forum. Now, beside the process of labeling the project, we have a follow-up, a support mechanism to every project that's being labeled Dakar 2021. And here I mark a pause to congratulate GWA. Your project for Bengal arsenic have been labeled. Is today, earlier on one of the sessions of the World Water Day activities here in Dakar, that the list of the first labelization have been announced, and the GWA project have been recognized are being pertinent and being contributing to attaining the SDGs. So congratulations to GWA. Next slide. So just to reiterate this process of selection, everyone that has a project that they think is innovative in contributing to attaining the SDG, especially this SDG 6, can submit their application. The application going to go through a selection, and if the jury, the international jury, judges that this project is pertinent and really contributing and have a long-lasting impact on the populations, they're going to give it the label Dakar 2021. And this below is the address, the email address to contact us if you need more information. And the link on the right is just if you want to fill out the application and submit your project for labelization. Next.
Great. And Mamadou, we need to move on to the next speaker, but if you just wanted to provide some closing remarks.
Yes, the main thing we're going through right now is the strategy of mobilization is around the youth. So right here, right now, I'm here to make sure the youth around the globe, especially North America, is mobilized to prepare, to participate, next slide, to participate in the Dakar Forum Next, and really bring what they know, because the youth mobilization is important before, during, and after the forum. So there are lists of activities that can be done before, during, and after the forum. So if you can share this presentation of with the participant, they can actually contact us and make sure they take action and get mobilized and participating in the process, coming to Dakar to make it really a forum of the responses with the participation of the youth. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mamadou. And we'll be sure to share the slides as well as the recording of this event following this event later in the week. So next, I am delighted to be joined by Oscar-winning producer Claire Slinney, as well as Dr. Arun Deb, who will both provide opening remarks before our panel discussion with Linda Bowie, Dr. Jordan Ermilio, Krista Cook, and Nalat Fanet Black. So Claire is currently a senior at the University of Pennsylvania studying philosophy, politics, and economics, as well as gender, women's, and sexuality studies. As a high school student, she co-founded the PAD project to address menstruation-related stigma. And as a sophomore in February 2019, she won an Academy Award for the short film documentary Period, End of Sentence, which she was a co-executive producer to. But before Claire's remarks, we'd just like to play for you really quickly the trailer to her documentary, and we'll also drop a link to the full film in the chat, which Netflix has made widely available on its YouTube channel.
Can you explain what is this? Why are you not answering?
भाई तो भगवान ने पता हो
यहाँ पे किसको पता है पीरियड्स क्या होते हैं? नाम सुना है?
ये तो जी
घंटे वाले पीरियड्स जो मतलब कॉलेज में चलते हैं।
नहीं
पैड समझते हो ना?
नाम भी नहीं सुना, नाम भी तुम्हारा नहीं सुना।
पता ही नहीं कैसे करेंगे
कपड़ा सा भी यूज करते हैं।
ज़्यादातर मैंने ये देखा है कि मतलब इतनी छूट नहीं है लड़कियों के लिए, जॉब कर सकें या फिर कुछ कर सकें, इंडिपेंडेंट हो सके।
एक मशीन लग रही है काठी खेरा में, सुना है आपने इसके बारे में?
Wonderful. Claire, please.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Kelly. And thank you guys for having me here today. I'm really excited. I am, as she mentioned, one of the co-founders of the PAD project and an executive producer of the Oscar-winning documentary short Period End of Sentence. And I started this process about 8 years ago. I was a freshman in high school, and I actually attended the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. And it was there that we learned about this idea of period poverty. At the time, it wasn't called that. It's a much more like modern and kind of trendy way to describe this issue of inequalities in terms of access to period care products, especially hygienic and affordable period care products. And it also encapsulates this idea of like the stigma surrounding menstruation, which is really, really pervasive in societies all around the world. And so my English teacher and some of my friends who had gone to the CSW with me, we all decided to kind of come together and raise money for what we learned was a sanitary pad machine. And it essentially can be manual, semi-automatic, or automatic, and create period care products, pads in particular, for very low cost. And it had been presented as like a really, really fantastic option for communities where period care products are extremely expensive and just completely out of financial range for individuals looking to like care for their period in that way. And in addition to raising money for this machine, we decided to make what at the time we thought was just going to be like a small sort of PSA talking about our work, because we felt like we could amplify the magnitude of the work that we were doing if we could share the story with others around us. And what was originally meant to be a smaller PSA transformed into an Oscar-winning documentary short with the help of, lots of various nonprofits and NGOs and people in the industry, just kind of looking to amplify our story, because people were so, I guess, taken aback by it. This idea of not having access to period care products can be kind of distant for some people. And then also, because periods are not talked about on a global stage. And it was an opportunity to destigmatize a very stigmatized subject. And I'm really excited to be here today for World Water Day, because I think that, there is a very direct relationship between water and sanitation and period care products and sort of the health of those who menstruate and empowerment in general. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories about how lack of clean water is directly related to complications with period care. Homeless menstruators in developed cities who can't access even a clean bathroom to change their period product, and are resultingly exposed to really dangerous bacteria and harmful infections, or people living in rural communities who don't have access to clean water. It really is a problem, and access to period care products is directly correlated to having access to clean water and sanitary facilities to manage your period. And I just kind of wanted to share as a lasting sort of bit of advice is this idea that, I started doing the PAD project. We founded it really when I was a freshman in high school. And that was 8 years ago. I'm now a senior in college. And I can say that it has been a really long and difficult process, in part because I think that people didn't initially take us very seriously as an organization, because we were founded by, a group of like 7 or 8 high school students and our English teacher. But I firmly believe, and I can say from experience, that like there is no age limit or age minimum for activism. If there are issues that you're passionate about and you feel need to be like bettered, or you ought to get involved with, like, do it, because that's what we did. And finally, I think all of these years later, people are taking us seriously. Organizations and global leaders and other activists and people in advocacy are taking us and our work seriously, because we persevered and worked really hard to get to a place of legitimacy. So I just wanted to say that, like, as a young person, I guess to a word of advice to kind of the people who are more experienced in these fields, that take young people seriously when they're active and passionate about an issue, because we have a lot to bring to the table. And I think having young and fresh voices in a lot of these conversations is what is moving them forward and like ultimately helping to enact tangible change as we enter the next several decades. Thank you so much again for having me. It was an honor, and happy World Water Day.
Great, and thank you, Claire, for sharing your journey in creating the PAD project, and then also for that really important advice, about taking young people seriously and getting engaged no matter what your age is in this really important advocacy. So I would now like to introduce Dr. Arun Deb, whom I serve on the board of directors with at the Global Water Alliance. Dr. Deb is currently adjunct faculty at the University of Pennsylvania. He has more than 60 years of experience in teaching, research, and consultancy in water and wastewater management, the last 30 years of which he worked at Weston Solutions, Inc. He's currently involved in safe drinking water projects in schools in West Bengal, India. Dr. Deb.
Thank you, Kelly.
And so sorry, can you move your camera down just a little bit so that we can see your full face? Great, thank you.
I cannot see it. Can you see me?
Yes, great
Okay.
now.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good. Thank you, Kelly. This is a great opportunity, though it's short, and I'm going to talk basically my life story. And as Kelly mentioned, that I have 60 years of experience of water, wastewater, and sanitation, and worked in 3 different countries, India, UK, and also in the United States. Now, during the last 30 years, I was involved in with the Water for People and then with Global Water Alliance in various volunteering activities. I was involved in community water systems in Sagar Island, West Bengal, in the Bay of Bengal, which is about 200 miles south of Calcutta, in the Bay of Bengal, with 250,000 population, and they don't have any drinking water system, except the water is available about 1,000 feet below ground. Need tube wells, and hand pump. There were many at that time, but mostly defunct. With the help of Water for People, we started to build wells for the community. But we considered the sustainability is very important in it, and women got involved, and they are trained how to repair their tube wells, and they formed an association and collected money for maintenance and have an association to maintain it. Then I was involved in arsenic project in villages of West Bengal and Bangladesh. It's a huge problem, 20 to 50 million people impacted of groundwater contamination with arsenic. And we came up with, along with Water for People, along with Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology and Lehigh University of this country, we developed a system, and we built about more than 200 systems in 200 villages. Approximately 200,000 people are getting benefit out of it. In the last 15 years, we are building also school water and sanitation system in West Bengal, and we did for more than 50 high schools. In high school, they did not have any water except one hand pump. Now, what we did actually, we put a well and a submersible pump and lift the water to the overhead reservoir, and from there to various systems, sanitation systems, and drinking water systems. And also we provided a room for adolescent girls for change room, and also incinerator for disposal of napkins. And that was the great achievement. As a result, attendance has gone up in the school. And the last 10 years, I was involved in girls' education and empowerment in rural village of West Bengal. After 10 years, girls from these villages are going to colleges, and we found that it not only changed the girls, but it changed the whole communities. Students' involvement during the last 7 years as an adjunct faculty at the Penn, I was involved in with the Penn MES students teaching world water issues. In 2016, Mark Lodo, a Penn MES student, came to me for capstone project, and he's finally in his final year. And he spent 2 weeks in the villages of West Bengal and collected, analyzed data and presented findings and presented in 2017 GWA conference in Calcutta. In 2017, 9 students from Penn and 1 from University of Wisconsin. And in 2020, 8 students from Penn, 1 from Yale, spent 10 days in villages and received the first-hand knowledge about the studies and sustainability. In 2019, 2 students from local university conducted socioeconomic health study for students in East Midnapur. In all these projects, students learned first-hand knowledge on issues of water and sanitation, sustainability issues, data collection, analytical ability to analyze data, development of models for sustainability. Many students who participated in these projects are in their professional lives now and still working on water-related issues. Water, sanitation, and hygiene, WASH, is an important aspect of healthy human life. I hope more students with interest in water and sanitation issues of developing countries will come forward in this field. World Water Forum 2022 in Dakar, Senegal. A large number of water and sanitation professionals will participate in this forum. There will be a great opportunity for young students and water professionals to meet with other professionals and experts in the field and learn world water and sanitation issues. I urge young students and professionals to take advantage of this conference, which is held once in every 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deb, for your work with and mentorship to young people in India and the United States working to improve water, sanitation, and hygiene or WASH conditions globally. And also for this call to action that you've just delivered to young people who are listening and participating in this event to really take advantage of and participate in the World Water Forum in Dakar next year. So we will now be joined by our wonderful panelists, Linda Bowie, Dr. Jordan Ermelio, Krista Cook, and Nalat Fanet Black. And before we kick off the panel, I just want to briefly introduce our 4 panelists. So Linda Bowie is a government relations specialist with the Council of Ontario University. She's joining us from Canada this morning. And she's a leader in the youth movement, having co-founded the Girls Empowerment Movement and served as a parliamentarian with the World Youth Parliament for Water, a global changemaker youth ambassador, and a member of her local government's Environmental Advisory Committee in Brampton, Canada. Dr. Jordan Ermelio is a professor at Villanova University, co-founder of the Villanova Engineering Service Learning Program, and director of the Center for Humanitarian Engineering and International Development. His research is centered around evaluation metrics for the sustainable management of water infrastructure. He's also a former US Peace Corps volunteer, having served in the Philippines. Krista Cook is the co-founder of Solidarity Engineering and is currently in Guatemala, where she's providing humanitarian WASH assistance to communities affected by the 2020 hurricanes Eta and Iota. Most recently, she was a WASH field engineer with Global Response Management, working at Matamoros refugee camp in Mexico. And then finally, Nalat Fanet Black is the Sustainable Development Goals Director at the United Nations Association Atlanta chapter. From 2015 to 2017, she served as the chapter's president and has been a member of the United Nations Association Network for over 10 years. Her career has spanned nonprofit leadership and project management, nuclear non-proliferation, human rights, and environmental sustainability. In addition to serving as panelists, Linda, Jordan, Krista, and Nalat will also facilitate each of the 4 brainstorming breakout rooms, so you'll have more of a chance to interact with them then too. So, all right, Linda, it'd be wonderful to hear from you first.
Great. Thank you, Kelly, and for the team for organizing and this opportunity to speak. I want to first acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee, or land also known as Toronto, Canada. I extend my gratitude and solidarity with Indigenous communities worldwide as original protectors of land and water. From 2014 to 18, I was part of the World Youth Parliament for Water, WYPW, a global youth network advocating for youth participation in water. I first learned about these opportunities actually through social media. So the local opportunities then led to more global ones, a kind of snowball effect. WYPW's team is elected every 3 to 4 years to ensure that new youth can access these opportunities. During my term, youth from over 70 countries worked together in smaller teams to prepare for our own youth gathering, which took place a week prior to the larger forum. The goal was to provide an opportunity to lead a knowledge exchange, prepare for the forum itself, and meet in person. In practicing our presentation skills and learning more about water issues, we gained a deeper understanding about technical, social, and cultural water issues globally. And we ensured that youth delegates could participate in the forum in many ways. Personally, I was able to co-lead a workshop on project ideation and youth engagement. So back to that snowball effect analogy, after this forum, I then took part in the World Water Week in Stockholm on a panel that focused on SDGs 6 and 5, water and gender equality, an intersection that I care about deeply. All of the information and knowledge I gained have now been incorporated into other opportunities that I've taken part in, including co-founding the Girls Empowerment Movement in my local community. So what advice do I have for youth interested in participating in some of these activities? I'll share 3 things. Firstly, fundraising and finances can definitely be barriers for youth participation. For myself, I was able to access student conference travel grants through my local universities to attend. If this is not an option for you, I encourage you to reach out directly to your program to department to seek supports. Secondly, research ahead any parliamentarians that might be attending from your home country at the forum itself. Similarly, in my case, myself and other Canadian delegates were able to facilitate a meeting with a parliamentarian at the forum when we were there. And thirdly, I think everyone speaks about this really importantly, to capture your experiences in multimedia forms. In both cases, our delegation prepared video clips, newsletter write-ups, all of that to be able to disseminate our learnings during the event, but also post-event. In closing, I just want to say that taking part in these experiences have been some of the fondest memories I have. The youth that I met, many of whom I'm still connected with today, including Kelly, and also on screen, the other youth I participate with is incredibly memorable. I think being able to connect a country or issue that you read about or learn about to people that you actually know has definitely inspired me to continue to work locally in my home country, but also in solidarity and partnership with other youth movements on water, climate action, and the other SDGs. Thank you for listening, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions after this event. And happy World Water Day.
Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing your experience as a former parliamentarian, as well as your process of getting to the 7th World Water Forum in South Korea, and World Water Week as well in Stockholm. You know, certainly I think there's lots to take away for others hoping to do the same for the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar. So now we will move.
Thanks everyone for being here. My first Zoom bomb experience. I don't know about everyone else. But nonetheless, so I studied mechanical engineering at Villanova. That's outside of Philadelphia. And one thing that's really important, I think, for young professionals, young people in general, when they're interested in doing this type of work, is to really reflect on what's important to you, what your values are, what you're passionate about. And perhaps this is something that's important regardless of the area that you find yourself in professionally, whether it's humanitarian work in a water sector and doing development work internationally. But really the importance of just sort of self-awareness is one of those important elements of being successful very generally. And so whenever anyone talks to me about being interested in doing development work, I often advise them to reflect, to pray and even meditate a bit, and find out what they're really, and sort of discover what their passions are. And of course, once you sort of discover that, say yes to every single opportunity that presents those type of passions and sort of involvement in that pathway. So I actually did that quite a bit when I was an undergrad. And what I sort of discovered about myself was that I was very passionate about humanitarian work. I was passionate about doing engineering and engineering development type of work. And I was also passionate about doing international work and immersing myself in development challenges. So that really led me to the Peace Corps, where I spent 3 years living in the Philippines. Some of the photos here are from that work in the Philippines. I guess the good news is that whenever I talk to people about engagement and doing development work with Peace Corps, it's really important to reference this. My personal opinion is that nobody ever, the only people who say that college was the best time of their life are people who didn't join the Peace Corps. Because without a doubt, I sort of finally look back at that time as one of the best times of my life. Beyond that, I did work with Oxfam International in an area called East Timor. These are some photos from that. But again, I think the importance of sort of self-awareness, knowing where your passions are and what you're really excited about, really, and then of course saying yes to every opportunity that presents those type of criteria is a really important thing when it comes to being successful in general, particularly in the water sector. So I'll just move on to the next slide here. This is where one of the lessons learned, or some sort of words of wisdom that I like to share with people, and it really presents issues related to social justice and what could be described as an injustice when it comes to water and development challenges globally. And it's particularly with respect to monitoring and evaluation. Now, what happens is, strangely enough, in the development process, participatory methods get employed where the local community participates in the overall process of community development, especially in the water sector. But for some reason, in the monitoring and evaluation phase of a project, the local community isn't as involved. And this is where I like to sort of advocate for local management and supporting local management of services, proposing that metrics really matter, proposing that terminology is very important, and that, of course, local stakeholders really, really matters. And this is just demonstrated here by these photos, wherein, if you can believe it, in 2014, when these photos were taken, by every single development metric globally, the people in these first two photos, the children here, had what they described as sustainable access to safe drinking water. And this is really what I describe as an injustice, because the metrics that were used something called proxy indicators. The terminology that was employed around sustainability wasn't quite where it needed to be. And ultimately, local stakeholders weren't actually included in establishing certain metrics. And so even at that time, it's also important to realize that the local stakeholders or the community members themselves were often described as beneficiaries of a particular service rather than customers. And so this is where I think some of the sustainability challenges really exist. And what I would describe as some social justice issues that really need, where the sustainable development goals and the global community really needs to sort of evaluate what the metrics are being used and terminology that gets used around sustainable development challenges. So I will leave it at that and turn it over to our next speaker.
Great, thanks, Jordan, and apologies again to everyone for that hacking that just went on, but thanks, Jordan, for being adaptive and handling that like a champ. So next, we would like to welcome Krista to share her experience of applying this framework that Jordan has laid out, to the field in the communities in which she has worked in Mexico and now Guatemala. Krista, it'd be wonderful to hear from you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for the invite. And actually here right now in Chisec, Guatemala, where I'm located, they are having a protest against the palm oil industry because they say it's degrading their watershed and therefore their water quality. So World Water Day is alive and strong here. So as Kelly mentioned, I am a co-founder of Solidarity Engineering, and I would like to quickly share our story, how we came about. So myself and two other female engineers, Chloe Rassatter and Erin Hughes, came down to the border where there was a refugee camp forming based on some of the previous administration's immigration policies. There was about 3,500 people living on the Mexican side of the border in a refugee camp. And we all three came down through Global Response Management, who is a healthcare NGO. While we were there as a group of engineers, we quickly realized that, you know, we're stronger united and that we can do better work together. So we started working together to do a stormwater management plan because the area that this refugee camp is in actually is in a floodplain, because the city of Matamoros had built a big berm that would protect the city while there was a hurricane. However, this was the only basically open location in this urban area, so that is where the camp formed. But what that means is it's going to flood really bad during hurricane season. So we knew that that was coming. We were there starting in about May. We started doing a stormwater management plan, which included distributing sandbags in strategic locations, hundreds of meters of drainage ditches. We had raised everybody's house, everybody's tent off the ground using platforms. But we also had a contingency evacuation plan in case it flooded so bad that we needed to evacuate. However, we based this plan off of our own point of view and our own assumptions. So when the waters did rise to a dangerous level, we encouraged people to evacuate. We had an evacuation plan. We had reached out to all the local shelters. We had buses ready to take people there. But when it came down to it, absolutely nobody wanted to evacuate because they were, one, scared they want to be able to return, and two, they felt that they would be safer together in this community rather than spread out through the city of Matamoros. Because we encouraged people to evacuate, we lost a lot of community trust. So whenever we decided to form as a group, that's why we decided to never make this mistake again. That's why we named ourselves Solidarity Engineering. So that way we'll always constantly be reminded by name and by our mission to always do plan, design, implement any project hand in hand in the community. Because as engineers, we may have a technical expertise, but we do not have the local knowledge. And end user acceptance is by far the most important thing. Even though we had this beautiful plan, we hadn't talked to anybody about the plan first. So it ended up causing a lot of problems for us down the line because people quit trusting us. So to gain back that trust, we started holding regular community meetings and having the community themselves identify different projects that they wanted us to do. So the first project, the first thing they said was, we need a school. At this point, all the migrants had been there for about a year, and you can't get that time back when it comes to education. So we partnered with the community leaders, the asylum seeker leaders, to find a location, to fundraise, find local materials, find teachers, find a curriculum to build the school. So here's a picture inside of the school where we also started a STEM class that we only did 1 hour a week, but everything else was completely asylum seeker run as far as teachers and curriculum were involved. After that, they also asked for a playground during these meetings. So we ended up building this playground that turned really more into a daycare, because we also hired a playground attendant. And this really freed up a lot of particularly women's time because they didn't have to worry about where are they going to do with their children, if they need to go to work, if they need to go to the store. So this playground ended up being highly impactful, not just because was it a safe space for kids, but also it really freed up a lot of women's times. And then we had a little bit of space and a little bit of money left over from the playground project. So we opened a soccer field, as you can see in this picture. And yes, that was for the kids, but it was mostly for the community because there was nothing to do there. So the soccer field ended up being a really the only community space that was open and available to anybody in this camp. So the moral of our story as Solidarity Engineering is to constantly work hand in hand with the community itself, because if not, you may end up making a hurricane evacuation plan that absolutely nobody follows, and that you will lose community trust. So my advice to youth is mainly, more than anything, to show up. That is how me and these other three engineers formed was we all showed up at the border, particularly if you can volunteer locally. I myself am from Texas, and this problem was happening right on the border of Texas and Mexico. So volunteer locally, show up in spaces that you think you can contribute in. And also the last two things I would say is we funded all of these projects through GoFundMe, so small donors. That everything that we have done in this camp, I've only mentioned a few projects. We did a lot of wash work too. We built showers. And the other thing I would say is find partners. We are here in Guatemala right now working on basically responding to the hurricanes, and we were only able to get here because we partnered with Life Straw and Dr. Bronner's, who provides soaps. They provided donations, and we brought it down here and are doing community trainings to make sure that the products that they've given us are people know how to use them and that they're installed properly in their homes. So show up, fundraise if you can, and find partners. That would be my advice to any youth who are interested in getting involved in the water sector. Thank you, Kelly, so much for hosting, and also thank you for the invitation to speak today.
Great, and thanks, Krista, for sharing your important experiences from the ground and providing that perspective. And I think, this advice at the end in terms of showing up and, making sure that you build trust in the communities. And so, and I think that this is really valuable for those in the room who are looking at doing more of a, service learning project in the lead up to the World Water Forum, but certainly, in their careers beyond that too. I think it's really important. So finally, I would like to welcome Nalat to provide your thoughts about your own journey from the 5th World Water Forum in Turkey to where you are presently with the United Nations Association of Atlanta. Nalat?
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks for having me here on this stellar panel with these inspirational speakers. And so my experience with the World Water Forum is from 2009 when it was in Istanbul, Turkey. And it really cultivated my passion in sustainability. During the forum, I worked with my colleagues in developing a very amateur drama piece as an example of how to ignite a conversation about WASH amongst youth. And after graduation, which unfortunately was during an economic recession, I landed a few gigs, one of them being a research assistant at the Pinchot Institute for Conservation. And when I was working on a climate adaptation plan for the Upper Delaware River region, I collecting some data for the Milford Experimental Forest. This is when I was aware about what it took to create change on a local level. And during this time, I was under the tutelage of a very experienced research fellow in community planning. And one thing I learned from her was that we have to encourage everyone's participation. We have to encourage from the source to the outcome. So in our meetings, we would have people that represented, forest landowners who wanted to protect watersheds, to governmental entities and local businesses. Now, when I moved to Atlanta a few years ago, WASH was not a forefront issue, but my colleagues at UNA Atlanta and I recognized that racism is a huge issue that stems across all 17 global goals and is a huge hindrance. Environmental racism is a hindrance in advancing many of the global goals like food security and quality health. And environmental racism is felt all across Atlanta, across the world. One of the initial challenges that I faced when creating the Sustainable Development Goals Committee of UNA Atlanta was the lack of public awareness on the global goals. Outside of universities, the global goals aren't a common topic of discussion. We're breaking that barrier down little by little. And so for several years now, UNA Atlanta has been educating and raising awareness on the global goals across multiple levels through partnerships with local and national organizations. Our partnership with the Regional Center of Expertise and Education for Sustainable Development of Greater Atlanta, also known as RCE Greater Atlanta, has given us opportunities to bring SDG education into K-12 classrooms. We've hosted roundtable discussions, panel discussions, and service days to help organizations and individuals share the lessons learned, and offer opportunities for future partnerships. My advice to youth who are passionate about WASH or the global goals in general is to make connections with peers who share the same passion. You get to learn with each other and motivate each other on this long journey towards sustainability. Remember that you need patience. You cannot solve these issues overnight. You get to share resources, perhaps an internship opportunity, or start your own initiative. Just a little inspirational story. There was a Georgia Tech student, her name is Jasmine Burton, who started Wish for WASH while still in school. And it still is functioning as a social enterprise, bringing innovation to sanitation with a focus on human-centered design and gender equity. As one of the panelists said earlier, there is no age limit or age minimum for activism. And to connect with peers, I suggest you look at the networks that you're already connected to. I can suggest a few organizations which you may be interested in. I'll drop those links in the chat box, but they are UNA USA, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, and the RCE Network. These are huge organizations with huge networks. You can find small and impactful organizations in your area with a bit of research. If you are interested in watershed protection, you may want to get connected to river keepers in your area. Like for example, in Atlanta, we have the Chattahoochee River Keeper, and local US Forest Service or National Park Service offices can also need your help in terms of volunteering or bringing the message across about WASH. Talk to your local government officials about the global goals and how they can help support the goals. UNA USA has an easy system that you can fill out to send a message to your local members of Congress on climate action. And I'll drop that link in too. So that's just a little bit about me and my work. And thanks again for having me here. And I look forward to the breakout session. Thanks, Kelly.
Excellent. Thank you, Nalat. And I think it's really important too that you laid out some of these platforms. And I think when we go into the breakout room portion, it's really important to know, what are these platforms that young people can link up to, especially if they want to drive change around the Sustainable Development Goals and SDG 6 in particular around water and sanitation for all. So now I would like to open it up to all of you for your questions or comments that you have to all of our speakers, whether it's Mamadou, Claire, Dr. Deb, Linda, Jordan, Krista, and Nalat. If you have a question, feel free to either throw it in the chat box, or if you'd like to raise your hand, we can also do that too. And you can go off mute and off video or on video so that we can hear and see you. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, so while hopefully folks get their questions sorted, I would like to turn it to this group and have my own question, which is, what is the biggest challenge you face in the water sector, and how can young people contribute to solving that challenge? So maybe, very briefly, Nalat, we can actually start with you and, work our way backwards.
Well, these challenges are huge, right? So it requires a lot of collaboration and partnerships. Even at UNA Atlanta, we're still working out what makes a good partnership, because you want it to be sustainable partnership to create some kind of relationship. So that is on a case-by-case basis. If you are a youth, I would suggest you connect to, come say hi, sweetie, to your local professors and get inspiration and see where you can plug in, because there's plenty of places that you can plug in, but it depends on matching up your passion and time to that.
Great, thanks, Nala. It's great to see another, hopefully, burgeoning young water professional there. And I'd like to open it up to the other speakers. If you'd like to share some of the challenges you're facing, and how can young people contribute to that? Arun, I see that you've gone off mute. Would you like to respond to that?
Can I mention something, Kelly?
Yes, please.
Nalat mentioned important questions. Doing the work for water and sanitation project is very important that you connect with the local people. This is utmost important, connect with the local people. And I believe in the project it should be bottom up, not top down. Very important, bottom up and top down. It should be bottom up. That means those people, the community, they should like and they would like to come up with this project. And we are going to facilitate that. And they should take the ownership. Ownership is very, very important for sustainability. They should feel that that's their project, that's not our project, their project. And therefore, they should participate very intensely on the project. They should care about this project. Once it is done, then it will be sustainable. That's number one. Number two is, for sustainability, you need two other things. An institution. Who is going to manage it? You have to form an institution. Number three, who is actually, where from the money will come? And you have to find out the source of money. You should have a money source. You have an institution to spend the money and run the project properly. And other important issue is local technology or appropriate technology. Wherever you're going to use, if you just bring some sophisticated technology from US or Canada and install it in Mali, it's not going to work. You have to find a local technology. You have to find local availability of parts to make it sustainable. It's very important before doing any project, spend more time on sustainability and getting the people together and make it bottom-up approach and ownership. Thank you.
Thanks, Arun. And I think Clara had also she had put in the chat some points about, this bottom-up approach and working with communities. And I wondered, Clara, if you wanted to just elaborate on that a little bit further too.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So I can, speak from my experience with the PAD project in saying that, the way in which we approach our work and approach all of our, partnerships and relationships is by looking to the communities that we're working with and letting them essentially direct or choose the direction and determine the way in which we're going to partner and connect, because I think a really common issue in social impact work and activism and things like that is that people often have an agenda, which happens. You have a plan, you think that the circumstances are one way and suddenly they're not. Initially with period end of sentence, we, even from numerous conversations with our partners in India and the NGOs we were working with, and even members of the community, when our director and director of production arrived in Kathikera, the village that period end of sentence was filmed in, there were many kind of unexpected moments and things that they learned and ways in which the narrative shifted. And so I just think it's really important to address the needs that are actually present, not the needs that you think are present. For instance, I've heard about situations in which organizations have truly the best of intentions, but especially in the menstrual hygiene space, they will, they've donated tons and tons of reusable, washable pads. And they'll donate them to communities that don't even have access to clean water or running water. And it's, a completely misguided donation, and it actually can, instill more harm than it, even kind of the circumstances were prior because of increased infection and things like that. And so that's a perfect example of, well, if you'd actually spoken with the community and understood exactly what they're, what they have, what they need from you, how you can best serve and partner with them, then you can avoid situations like that. And like I said, using the term partner and making sure that it is a relationship, it's not just giving and not just kind of charity, because it's so much more than that. It is far surpasses that. It's all about the relationships. And so I know that was kind of what Krista was talking about, but I really wanted to emphasize how important partnerships and communication and all of those concepts are when you're doing work like this.
And thank you, Claire and Dr. Deb and Kristen Nalat and others who have made, I think these really important remarks about working with the communities. And I think, Claire, this point about, labeling that relationship as a partnership is something that's really valuable, for all of us to take note of that. So I wanted to just give pause in case there are any other comments or questions from the audience. And if not, I can ask another question, but certainly do want to open this up to those in the room. If you have a question, please feel free to either use your raise hand button or to ask your question in the chat. All right, so I'll just, ask just one other quick question, I think, for those who would like to respond. Nalat and Linda had both mentioned some of these resources or platforms that students, recent graduates and early career professionals can use, I think, to engage in water issues, and then also in the World Water Forum specifically. So whether that's the World Youth Parliament for Water, or, River Keepers or some of these other groups that have been mentioned. But, certainly there are other groups that I think can serve to really equip young people, to engage in these issues, whether it's in their community or globally. So, if there are any other thoughts from the panelists before we break out into our breakout rooms, I think that would be really helpful too, just to get us thinking about some of these groups that we can certainly, rely on to support this work. So I just wanted to open it up to all the participants. And Mamadou, I don't know if there's anything more that you wanted to share from the World Water Forum's front in terms of ways in which you've seen young people engage, in these issues in other regions in addition to those, in North America.
Yes, I'm on the wheel, as you see. Still connected and changing location from the office to my house. But anyway, yes, absolutely. We have a great dynamic going on right now, which is led by the young water professionals in Africa with their representative in Senegal. Their president, Fatimata Sall, is actually a member of the secretariat of the forum, works with us. She's been held up today with the other sessions going on. She couldn't come with me to this presentation, but basically the whole youth of Africa, we had a very large webinar of mobilization for the youth. And we've heard very, let's say, pertinent projects, very innovative ideas that young people are developing to help communities either in their countries or regions. So, and what I heard today are all projects that can be of interest, can be duplicated, can be shared. So I believe if this, what we started here today, the recruiting of the youth for the World Water Forum in Dakar, whole will come together and will enrich the content of the forum, especially the project that are going to be labeled Dakar 2021, some of which will be exposed, will be exhibited actually at the path of the responses, which is an exhibit specific for innovative answers to water problems around the globe. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Mamadou. And I don't know if there are any other points on this. I see that there's a question from Julia. I also received a question in the chat from Thomas. So maybe we can start with Thomas Hu first and then go to Julia afterwards. Thomas, if you wanted to put your video, that'd be great. If you're able to, otherwise, if you just want to go off mute.
Yes, hey, thanks, Kelly. And thanks for all the panelists. I wanted to ask, this could be open to anyone. What's the role of, a large part of it is involving education, and making sure that we educate youth about water and how they can, the science behind water, why it's so important. And I think a lot of, at least in the US, I think there's not much education, at least practically, about the importance of conserving water. So I was curious on the panelists' thoughts about how you can work with the education system to improve the education of youth starting from grade school on importance of using and conserving water with the projects that you're doing.
I can take on that question, Kelly and Thomas. Thank you for that question. That is a very good point. It has been a process for the past, 15 years of my life, ever since I met Stan and Christian and Dr. Deb, is that we see the talk about WASH and global goals in universities. But really, if you want to do a habit change or a community change, it comes from a young age. Right, water conservation, that's something that you have to cultivate that habit. So, at UNA Atlanta, this is a fairly new territory for us, but we are finally engaging with K-12 education, adopting one school at a time. So right now we're working with Indian Creek Elementary School in Clarkston, Georgia, which is a refugee resettlement community. So now within the RCE network, that is a university network, but a lot of these students have passion, education, and reaching out to young kids too. So we're seeing a trickling effect of university knowledge being passed down to K-12 education. Education is one thing, but practicing it is another thing. Families come into play, especially with young kids. So parents and guardians need to be educated too. They need to learn why is it important to conserve water. Even in Atlanta, we have drought. Even though we turn on the water and the faucet and the water comes out, we still have drought. We have drought notices, but people don't pay attention to that. Why is that? Is it the lack of caring? Is the lack of knowledge or awareness? These are questions that we still ask ourselves, but at UNA Atlanta and for myself, our way of solving this problem is going to K-12 classrooms and planting that seed of change in the students' minds.
Yeah, Nalet, I agree. Is that how you pronounce your name, Nalet? Yeah, and I think educating the parents is equally, if not more than important, because as young kids, you learn everything really from your parents, and that's important. By the way, I've been to Indian Creek when I was in Atlanta. It was great meeting some of the folks there.
Oh, great. Yes, we're still working with the students there at Indian Creek on science education. So that's another thing, it's not just about water, it's about appreciating science and where does water come from? We want the kids to ask these questions so they can be curious about it and learn about it and really plant that seed in their heads so that when they become adults, those values will still be carried on through their adulthood.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. And I did see that Julia had her hand up. Julia, if you wanted to go off mute and ask your question, that would be wonderful.
Hi, yeah, I would turn my camera on, but I'm having camera issues. But this is a question, I guess more for Claire, but anyone can really answer. I thought it was really surprising when, I saw your trailer and you guys asked the boys so what is a period? And they're like, oh, what class period? And I think that kind of shows the lack of knowledge of just sex education in general. And, menstruation is something every woman goes through and it's very natural and it's part of how, we have a child. So I think my first question is do you think we should implement more sex education in developing nations and really how to start talking to those leaders in education? And for someone who wants to be an OBGYN, I do want to start working globally. How do you think of OBGYN can play a role in educating more youth and women and males in sex education?
Those are two really, really good questions. Okay, so to speak to your first question, I think that what's so difficult when it comes to sex education and comprehensive sex education and engaging people around the world in those conversations is that you have to do your best to not have a United States, American sort of Western centered perspective when it comes to what like sex education should look like. You have to sort of find a balance between that and it's understanding that like culturally in many places, perceptions of sex and sex education are very, very different and oftentimes can be really kind of problematic depending on the effects that it can have on like individuals, on young women and girls, on young people, sort of exploring their sexuality or experiencing, you know, let's say various illnesses or ailments or are, you know, unsure about like what is or isn't okay to do or what is safe to do or, you know, various things like that. So I think that what's really important is to have knowledge, right? Like the way that the PAD project operates when it comes to the menstrual hygiene management programming that we like in partnership with communities on the ground and NGOs on the ground implement is it's just all about education and knowledge. You know, if you know about your body and, you know, the basic functions of your body, you're able to make more informed decisions about what you'd like to do with your body. In the same way, if you know, if I think everyone of all genders should be educated about the anatomy and the reproductive abilities and just the general health of all other genders. Like, I think that if you don't know about yourself and you don't know about others, then you can't make informed decisions. And I think that that's then where stigma and taboos start, is from a sort of a lack of information. So I think that sex education is incredibly, incredibly important and can be like the source of a lot of change, because you'd be surprised how many people that we spoke with in Katikera who like had no idea what a period was. And if you watch the documentary, you'll get a better idea of that. But, you know, people think it's a disease, an illness. It's so surprising how little people can know about something that is so intrinsic to like their bodily function. And then to answer your second question about being an OBGYN and how like you can sort of best incorporate yourself into this world and make the most impact. I mean, right now, like with the PAD project, we're talking so much about how we can partner with OBGYNs to focus on the like medical needs that are related to this advocacy work, because, you know, I'm fortunate that I have had wonderful experiences, and I'm very open about this, like with my own doctors, and I have peers who have been very fortunate with their experiences with their doctors, but not everyone has. And I think that like it is so important to enter that field and be an advocate for your patients. And then to also be like an advocate while being a doctor for those like outside of your patient circle and for like other communities, because you have like a really distinct knowledge and a really unique platform by being a doctor who focuses on that type of medicine, focuses on women's health and reproductive health. And so I think like the most important thing is to use that platform and to use that knowledge, do, you know, whatever work like you possibly can, because like right now we're in communication with, as an organization, with multiple OBGYNs looking to, you know, leverage their expertise to help further our work and sort of do what we can to leverage our social impact and our advocacy to benefit like their fields and like their general practices. And so it's all about like, again, back to partnerships and knowing like where you specialize and where those around you specialize and how you can sort of meet in the middle and lend your specialties to one another to like magnify your impact beyond just the scope of what you're able to do yourself.
Thank you so much. That was such a comprehensive answer. And I really do love how you bring up like Westernization, because currently I'm at Drexel and I just finished the term and I took this class called Global Development Education. And that was one thing we were talking about, how, you know, we have all these great educational initiatives. However, we implement them with a very Westernized lens, and like not all these countries and communities really want these Westernized practices. And I think cultural competency comes in a big big play when we're thinking about like, you know, creating these like powerful initiatives. But I definitely will check out your film. Like it looked so interesting and it's definitely something right up my alley. So thank you for putting your time and effort into that. And thank you for all the panelists who said, you know, who shared their story and also shared some advice. It was really inspiring and, you know, it was awesome. So thank you.
Great, and thanks, Julia, and also Thomas for the great questions. And we will still do a breakout room, but we'll do it much shorter than I think what we had intended. And you know, I apologize for the change of plans. But I did just want to give very quickly Linda, Krista, and Jordan a moment for any final remarks before we go off into the breakout room, since I know that we haven't heard from you yet during this Q&A.
I'll just say, express my gratitude again to GWA for putting this together. It's a wonderful opportunity, and just encourage everybody to embrace these opportunities as you can to get involved. And I think a lot of the common themes here across these sessions were such that, you know, embrace the opportunity, show up, engage with communities, and so on. So thanks, Kelly.
Great, thanks, Jordan. And Linda and Krista, do you have anything that you wanted to say before we break out?
I think everyone's covered it. Really, solidarity, not charity, kind of bringing out for me.
Great, thanks, Linda.
Yep, and I'll echo the same, solidarity, not charity. I couldn't agree more, Linda. And thank you to all the speakers. I think I myself learned a lot from the panelists here. So thank you everybody for showing up today.
Wonderful, thank you. And, you know, thank you again to all the speakers. I think that this has been really informative. And we'll now do just a very abbreviated breakout room, but this is hopefully just the start of these conversations. So we'll break out for just about 10 or so minutes. So if you click on the join button, we will then break out into our rooms just for the last few minutes of this event. Thank you.
Angelique, do you want to go into a breakout room?
Yeah, I can join one.
Okay. Yeah, I think because I organized it.
Do you want me to take notes instead?
Yeah, that would be great. Actually, let me put you
I
in.
can go to that one you were supposed to do, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put you there.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see all of your faces again. I know that that was a very brief breakout room session, but at least it was an opportunity for people to get a sense for who's in the room, what you're doing, and maybe some ideas at least to get things rolling and continue these conversations. So just very quickly in closing, since I know that we are over time already, you know, I hope that today has inspired you to engage in the World Water Forum in Dakar next year. I had the opportunity as a junior at UPenn to attend the 7th World Water Forum in South Korea and conducting research for a capstone project, and also presenting an award to youth globally who pitched their solutions to challenges at the intersection of gender and WASH. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, you know, to engage in the forum meaningfully. And you've heard from a number of people already from the speakers about ways in which you might do that, whether it's service learning or, you know, getting involved in the parliamentarian system like Linda did, you know, or other ways of really getting involved in contributing meaningfully to WASH and water sector more broadly. So as I mentioned, this is really just the starting point of these conversations to get you thinking about ways in which you might engage. We will follow up after this with the recording for this webinar, as well as the PowerPoint presentation from Mamadou with further information about how you can engage in the forum more formally. And then we also want to start, you know, seeing who has attended here, you know, that would like to continue these conversations, you know, and form some working groups around some of these ideas. We discussed partnerships in my breakout room between 2 organizations that were present. And certainly I think there's a lot of other opportunities, I imagine, from some of the other conversations that were had. So I hope we can continue this dialogue and hope that you explore engagement in the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar next year. Happy World Water Day. And thank you for joining us this afternoon, and take care and goodbye. So thank you all. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Nice talking to you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Christian.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone. Patrick, Kelly.
Thank you, Mamadou.
Thank you, Mamadou.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Ron, nice to meet you too, and everyone else.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Nice conference.
Bye. Thank you, Latanga.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye.